What's going on, guys? Chunky back here on my channel again. I'm here with yet another vlog for something that's been on my mind lately. Now, I wanted to give you guys a few updates on what I'm playing. I'm playing, firstly, Sea of Thieves, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. Secondly, Far Cry 5, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. And thirdly, A Way Out. I haven't played much of it, but it's a really cool, inventive, cooperative experience. It's something that needs to be played in co-op. And yes, get it, you'll thank me later. Hopefully I'll have a review up next week, but we'll see. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk about Sea of Thieves and Far Cry 5 later, or in this video really, is because I just noticed a recent trend. Now, while this isn't a review of Sea of Thieves per se, I am going to talk about the experience that I've had with Sea of Thieves and why I haven't reviewed it. I wanted to talk about Sea of Thieves and Far Cry 5 in the relation to releasing unfinished games. This trend of games as a service, releasing us more or less half of a game, something that feels empty and unfinished, and promising us more content and an end game eventually. Now, I will give you my short review of Sea of Thieves. It's a great looking game. The water physics are fucking fantastic. It makes you feel like a pirate, and yes, you could call it Pirate Simulator 2018. But what it's lacking is, it's lacking any context, it's lacking any variety, and it's lacking any depth. Sure, the first hour of this game is magnificent, but every hour is just the same, and if the same repetitive gameplay keeps rearing its ugly head, you're going to get sick of it pretty quick. However, the game sold well. It had that many people playing it on launch that it crashed the servers. So it's not a total failure, and there is much more to build on. So if you did pick up this game in a year's time, you might be playing something completely different. But that is not the case as of today. Now, this trend of unfinished games probably started with Destiny. I can think of the Destiny franchise as an example, and also as a really random example, Street Fighter V, which was released with barely any content, though it was a good fighting experience. But I just wanted to give my opinion on what an unfinished game looks like and what a common game looks like that actually is finished and makes good use of additional content. Now, the parallel that I've noticed is Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5 doesn't really do anything new with this business model. It has a game which you can buy on launch that has a story, has a competitive element, a cooperative element, a lot of things that don't really break new ground. Oh hey, it has a season pass and microtransactions, things that we've come to expect these days. But at the same time, let me tell you why Far Cry 5 is breaking new ground by giving us not only a finished, fleshed out experience, but also something that we can chew on if we choose to do so. Now, like I said, Far Cry 5 is a game all on its own, and yes, it does have microtransactions. But these microtransactions are purely cosmetic, skins, and stuff of that nature. Stuff that doesn't affect gameplay or add to the story in any way, which gives players that didn't jump on board an unfair or really disadvantage in any way. Now, what I can tell you is Far Cry 5 does have a season pass, and I jumped on board. Being somewhat of a critic of season passes, I jumped on board with this season pass because it wasn't necessary. That sounds really conflicting and really confusing, but let me explain. Far Cry 5 Season Pass gives you three sort of bite-sized experiences. A Vietnam War experience, a zombies experience, and a sort of Lost on Mars space shooter experience. And to top it all off, one of my favourite games, Far Cry 3, is remastered on PS4 and included in the Season Pass. Now, that is a great example of season passes, stuff that is not necessary but is so cool as an additional outlet that you would want to jump on board. Now, sure, Destiny started this trend of offering games as a service and really unfinished games by offering you what we'd see as a chunk of a game, a chunk of a larger experience with a necessary story that's going to flesh out what you're waiting for in the future. So naturally, you kind of have to jump on board, especially if you love the game, which I know a ton of Destiny fans have done. Now, going back to Sea of Thieves, Rare has promised us that this game isn't based around the need for microtransactions and unfair advantages, and that's great. However, you're lacking a progression system, and you're lacking anything that really sets you apart from anyone else. People that have forked out hours into this game are not going to get any sort of reward that really sets them apart and shows them that, hey, I am somewhat superior because I've decided to put time into this game. That's a fair argument. If people are going to be superior based on their skill and the time they've put into this game, and not spending extra money on it, then shouldn't they be rewarded either way? Getting rid of a progression system seems like a backwards attempt, and it explains why the game is so bare bones on release. My opinion would be to keep all those things. There's nothing wrong with a progression system. A progression system without microtransactions is just rewarding hard spent time. But this trend of releasing games as a service is really the excuse for unfinished games. It's basically unfinished because they're telling you it's unfinished. Another example is Respawn's Star Wars game. Now, as Respawn closed down, EA obviously have the rights to the game, so they acquired the game to make it something else entirely. What seemed like a third-person action open-world game is now going to be retweaked to serve a multiplayer service-based experience. What does that mean for users? Probably something like Destiny. Sure, it might have good mechanics and it might look great, but it's based on an unfinished product and it's based on a story and DLC that's going to keep you needing to fork out money once again just to get the complete experience. But touching on Sea of Thieves and Far Cry 5, I am glad that games like Far Cry 5 do exist. Sure, they're playing into the market by offering a season pass and microtransactions, but the fact that you don't feel like you're missing out on anything when playing the main Far Cry 5 experience is a reward unto itself. Sure, Far Cry 5 is a great game and I hope to get a review out in the future as I am currently playing it, but it's just a great example of why money isn't always a necessity. Sometimes the initial purchase can just be the initial purchase, and season passes can be something like icing on the cake. Sea of Thieves feels like half of the cake, and they've made as much of an effort as they can to make it feel finished. It doesn't look like half a cake, it's more just half the size of a regular cake. But that's still no excuse. And upon playing Sea of Thieves, I've come to a crossroads where I'm not necessarily finished with the game, but I feel done with it because it just feels repetitive. I feel like I've done everything the game has to offer, even though I haven't completed all the missions and explored the entire world. Does that mean I haven't finished the game, or the game isn't offering me with enough variety that I feel fulfilled, especially for a full price game? Sure, that's another issue unto itself, but if I'm paying full price for a game that doesn't really entertain me for more than 3 hours, then what am I doing? Sure, the answer is out there in other games like Far Cry 5, but it doesn't excuse that games like Sea of Thieves exist. Now sure, we live in a time where we value graphics, and Sea of Thieves looks fantastic, let me tell you that. The best water effects I've ever seen in a game. But it doesn't excuse variety and gameplay as the real hearty, meaty, chunky bit of the experience. But Rare are a good bunch of people and a good development studio. They've made great games in the past, don't get me wrong. Banjo-Kazooie, anyone? But it's safe to say they've fallen from this pedestal. Can they get back up and offer us some really fun, inventive, extra content for free in the future? Who knows? But all I know at the moment is games as a service seems like a trend and I don't really like it. That's it from me today, guys. If you like this video, leave a like down below. If you have something to say about unfinished games, season passes and microtransactions, I know I like to harp on this stuff, but there is unfortunately a lot to say. And if you've played Sea of Thieves, please comment down below and tell me what you think. As usual, guys, please hit that subscribe button down below. You'll be doing me a huge favor. At the time of recording this, I'm not at 100 subscribers, but I hope by the time this video goes up, I will be, and I will definitely be making a thank you video for 100 subscribers in the near future, assuming I hit that mark. Thank you very much, guys. As always, I'm Chunky. Thanks for stopping by my world, and I'll see you soon. Take care.